Regulation, necessary evil or next bull run?
Necessary for the next bull run. People generally presume that the customer demographic of all the exchanges are the same. Oh, it's just crypto bros. It's a very overly simplistic way to look at it. Based on the different exchanges that I've been at, it's actually quite different.
Welcome to BingX Block Banter. I'm your host, Ariel, and today we are with Daniel Lai, the Chief Business Officer of BingX. We're going to talk about risk, growth, security. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Would you like to introduce a bit about yourself?
I'm Daniel Lai. I'm a lawyer by training. So I handle market expansion here and also compliance and security related areas. A lot of what I do is institutional facing.
What is one thing in crypto that keeps you excited?
Having been in crypto for the last 5-ish years, seeing how regulators evolve their views about crypto is very interesting to me. So for me, that inspires quite a bit of passion to keep up to date with all the regulatory developments. I mean, you can see how the Hong Kong SFC and the Singapore MAS have gradually evolve their positions over time, because we are used to seeing regulators as, stodgy shirt and tie suit type of persons.
Yeah.
But they actually evolve their views over time because they understand the technology better, or the industry shifts. They respond to industry developments too.
You're right. A chief business officer sounds so formal, very suit up.
Yeah.
What is the most fun about your role?
It's learning about different markets for crypto. In 2025, a lot of the markets are quite established, but trying to figure out where we can add value, what we can do better vis-a-vis our competitors in different markets, that's a pretty good learning process for us. Because in crypto, we move fast and we don't have the time to really sit down and think about it. But when we do, there's a lot of learning and lessons that we can gather from that.
You talked about BingX going into new markets and how you have to learn about the regulations there. What is a factor that you look at when we're considering going into a new market?
A lot of this is about community building. Right, making sure that we are sending the right signals that we're here for the long run, that we have partners that everyone trusts, right? Whether it's a banking partner or a security partner or a compliance partner, the web of relationships we have, the stakeholders we work with.
Yeah.
If we are in the right community, that easily signals trust, community, and safety.
So community is the main factor.
I think so. You don't do this alone.
What happens to these regulations? You know how you talk about shift overnight, basically, sometimes. How does BingX plan for the long term?
Planning in crypto is difficult. The best laid plans of mice and men, right? They often go awry. You do your best to have local relationships, to get local know-how, local intelligence. And a lot of times you can probably get a whiff of the changing and developments, let's say, 3 to 6 months ahead of time. But outside of that, we are at year 7, right?
Yeah.
So, we have a lot of accumulated experience. Try to have mental models in terms of how we do things. Our values tell us what we can do, what we cannot do. Our instincts allow us to react very quickly because, they're honed at this point. Muscle memory's there. And, our operational experience allows us to figure out, okay, these are things we do better than the competitors, and these are things that we can work on and improve and, do better vis-a-vis our peers.
Speaking of markets like Vietnam and Turkey, you were saying they're a little bit more pro-crypto friendly with crypto. Were there any markets that were challenging to enter?
I don't think there's necessarily any market that's more difficult per se. It's hard to operate in an uncertain environment. Sometimes, even if it's not so crypto friendly, but at least it's certain, then you actually can plan for that. So as they say in the equity stock markets, right? Like sometimes bad news is good news too.
Bad news can be good news.
Yes, for sure.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah. My wife and I have kids, but before we had kids, we did have one miscarriage actually. And so that's bad news. But because of the sadness that we had for a period of time afterwards, we understood how focused we were. We understood how committed we were to having kids. And, it's actually quite a normal thing. You've heard about other people having that too, but it just hasn't happened to you, so you don't feel it. right?
Right.
But once you feel it, it gives you perspective, it gives you humility, it gives you focus, it gives you long-term perspective in terms of, oh, okay, there will be bumps along the road, but it's okay. It's part of the process.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Daniel. We're going to go into understanding a little bit about risk management and compliance. How does BingX manage risks while still managing new opportunities?
Risk is a part of everyday operations. Every aspect of what we do has risk. There's financial risk, there's operational risk, there's, fraud risk, there's compliance risk, right? There's the idea of moving fast, but there's also the idea of, I think, being observant about the market and just really diluting what are the lessons for us.
In terms of understanding the risk, right? How does risk management and, say, compliance work together?
The compliance risk has mostly to do with how regulators look at crypto. For us, it's making sure that we have the right partners in place. We work with SumSub, we work with LexisNexis, we work with Elliptic and Chainalysis. These are the partners that are globally recognized in terms of what they can do from an AML standpoint. We exist as a community, right? Because this partnership is in real time. They understand our particular business profile, our particular customer profile, and we work with them over time to make sure that we mitigate risk on a sort of ongoing basis, right? So it's not just snapshot done. We keep on doing it, and so there's a ongoing learning that goes in both directions.
Is there a takeaway or big lesson that you've learned from trying to stay compliant?
A lot of times we in crypto denigrate traditional finance a bit too much, I think, because when you get into an area where you don't really know, we're looking for a reference. And the best reference from a crypto context, I think, actually is traditional finance, because a lot of stuff we've done in traditional finance is helpful for us to understand, what we can do in crypto, where there might be some lack of clarity. So I think we should not be afraid to look at an adjacent industry like traditional finance, like banking and securities, and try to see what we can glean from them. DeFi basically is about democratizing access to finance, making sure everyone has access to the base ledger, the base layer of
Right.
transactions, right? So that's a slightly different model, but I think nevertheless, we can look to TradFi sometimes to get a little bit more context.
I did notice that we're picking up a lot of the lessons, learning lessons from TradFi and bringing it in. And then I see now a better mishmash of the two. Before that, it was like one or the other.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Actually, I want to circle back on what you were talking about, the strategic partnerships that we have that create this secure community. How do these strategic partnerships help BingX's growth and strategy?
Let's get into what SumSub does, in terms of ID authentication, making sure that the liveness checks, the faces match the IDs, right? To give you an example, about a year ago, there were some IDs that came in that, with the advent of AI, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people were doing deep fakes, right? We've worked with a number of vendors, including SumSub, to understand where we can add value and make sure that we suss out these deep fakes.
It's almost like an arms race with AI, like against, it's like a back and forth.
It is.
People want the security and people
Yeah.
want to mess with the security.
It is both both a challenge and interesting thing to have. This industry just captures all sorts of interested people, all sorts of demographics in the way that banking did not. There's a lot of people that are unbanked.
Right.
That's bad. They don't have, there's not enough financial inclusion. But, on the crypto side, there's a lot of financial inclusion, but you deal with the good side and the bad side.
So with more adoption, there naturally becomes more risks, more attempts to mess with the system.
I tend to think that's not true. A lot of times stuff in crypto gets amplified way out of proportion. Just to give you an example, I think the percentage of bad actors across different countries is generally the same. I think human nature is pretty much statistically consistent. There's not going to be a huge bias in terms of having bad actors in one country or versus another. I think it's generally the same.
That's a really nice perspective.
Yeah.
The bad actors exist everywhere, whether or not it's in crypto or not in the crypto space.
Yeah.
It's just that it's more evident in the crypto space. Earlier, you talked about SumSub being, this mutual partnership where we're both sharing information. So what qualities do you look for when you're choosing a strategic partnership?
Track record, I think the ability to also work with us, right? Track record tells me you're good. Working with us means that you're helping us manage our specific risk profile. Because every exchange is a little bit different, right? People generally presume that the customer demographic of all the exchanges are the same. Oh, it's just crypto bros. It's a very overly simplistic way to look at it. Based on the different exchanges I've been at, it's actually quite different.
So in the future, what do you see in terms of trends emerging for security and compliance?
I think stablecoin will not only be for trading, stablecoins will be for everyday payments. It's going to be more useful for sure on a cross-border basis. Within a particular market or a country, payments infrastructure is generally quite mature. But on a cross-border basis, no one likes foreign exchange fees.
Yeah.
Just relatively speaking, stablecoin presents a stronger value prop because it just reduces fees. I mean, USDC or USDT on ERC20 these days is $1, and it happens in about a little bit less than 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's just very easy. The question is, will people who do, like, say, wholesale trading, like import export, are they going to start adopting stablecoin payments? That's a question of the actual exporter importers and also who are building the tools and infrastructure to help them with their needs. So that's going to be an interesting space to watch. I think the second thing would be RWA, right? RWA is a very wide, all-encompassing term in terms of like what assets exist today. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the crypto format will capture part of that market. I think it is true that crypto will expand markets for traditional finance products. I think the third thing will be, if you take the position that there's been such a thing as pure CeFi and there's been such a thing as pure DeFi, the third trend is quite clear, is that you'll see a hybrid, right? People will be doing a mixture of both. Let's say CeFi might be for fiat on off-ramps, but then once you want to do specific things, then you will call to a particular DeFi app. Something like that. So I think those three trends are quite clear at this point.
We're going to go into a quick fire round. Give me your fastest answers.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Regulation. Necessary evil or next bull run?
Necessary for the next bull run.
Okay, good combination. If you had to bet on one Web3 trend in the next 12 months, what would it be?
12 months sounds long time, but I'd have to say stablecoin. Stablecoin payments for everyday payments. It's a very simple equation. Lower cost is lower cost.
Fastest market you're excited about? Fastest growing market?
I don't have the numbers with me, but I would say Southeast Asia in general, to me, is good.
Hey, before we wrap up, Daniel, what is one piece of advice that you want to share to everyone listening?
I would say, the move from TradFi to crypto has been exciting for a number of reasons, but I've been able to absorb more, learn more, evolve more because I've learned to be humble. I've learned to, set aside my ego and think about things from other people's perspective. And that has allowed me to be well versed in crypto and TradFi. So, I put on a hat depending on the audience I'm speaking to. Not to say that I'm trying to be manipulative. I try to be as, transparent and straightforward as possible. But it is important to be able to understand your audience. And a lot of times your ego gets in the way.
All right, that wraps up today's podcast. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing all your insights. If you like this episode, please subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. And that's a goodbye.